All right, and hi everyone. I wanted to take this opportunity to focus a little bit on the most recent pattern jazz experiment I did, which was number 3. And I also wanted to take an opportunity to just talk about the series and how it came into fruition and where I'm going with it. So if you watch some of the previous ones, as I was just looking, I guess I did Pattern Jazz 1, I did number 5, and the most current one is number 3 that has the Roland wind instrument. And I was thinking about it recently, like what makes up the basis of this particular series. Obviously, the name itself suggests something connected to the idea of jazz, so improvisation, and I think also some sense of freedom in terms of working with the materials. And all of these in this series have this like city and night theme, and so that's kind of this issue here. Is I'm really focused on the idea of illustrating a theme, and in this particular case I'm using the in all the cases I'm using the video loops from videoblocks.com. It's Eurorack based, so obviously a lot of what I'm doing involves Eurorack and my semi-modular, in particular the Folktech gear. I just recently got a new Folktech Matter, a used one, on Reverb.com, so I'm really jazzed, excited about just all the Folktech stuff out there and using that in these compositions. Also very dissonant and aggressive. If you watch my YouTube right now, I'm featuring quite a bit of archival material from the past, and I'm actually, I think I've since that time moved kind of in some new directions into this more aggressive industrial tonal direction with this particular series. And then the last characteristic is utilizing some sort of solo instrument. So in 2 of the previous pattern jazz experiments, I worked with some stringed instruments and actually used those, some homemade stringed instruments and a homemade percussion box, if you recall. That was in pattern jazz 1, and then 5 was that bowed type instrument. So this particular one I've been working on for a while, and my process in the past has been to typically, I wish I had an old example here. I don't. Actually, this one might work. This is Pattern Jazz 2. Maybe I could just play from, where's a good spot? I'll just play it from the 5-minute mark. And you can hear a little bit of this as it's going. But so this particular one, I'm using a lot of different instruments in here from my Eurorack collection, and then also using the Folktech Mescaline. And what I was trying to do on this one and some of the previous ones was to really take it through from start to finish and record the entire Eurorack performance as much as I could, and then go back and put the tracks in here, and based on having those tracks in there, make adjustments. In some cases within Final Cut Pro, I might go into the audio itself and do an enhancement, which typically I could do something with panning. I could also work on like a surround or something like that if I wanted to add a bit of surround to a particular pattern that might sound good in the case of its use. So I typically tried to lay out the video in conjunction with the musical tracks. And these go back and forth. So I sometimes will move a clip based on what's in the music and vice versa. Move a clip or add a clip. Change the start and stop points. Do a fade. Of course, adjust the levels. Try to go through and get good levels on everything and look at my overall VU and so forth. And then what I'm doing throughout the process is also making these mini loops. And this is unedited, so you're getting blurry video. But I make these mini loops sometimes using my cameras, my lighting system, a phone or a small screen. And what is going on in this particular pattern jazz that has not been released yet is I'm using this main city loop and then building off of that sort of as a theme. And so you see it coming back here in examples, and then I try to record shorter clips and often incorporate those with, in this case you see some opacity stuff going on with that particular set of clips. And then I sometimes add new clips. So I was looking through, in this case, some stock footage. Again, whatever I'm limited by with video blocks I use, but if I find an interesting clip, I might try to use that. Again, night city clips, and then see how that works with the musical tracks. And another variation of this in my Eurorack with that particular screen, yet another variation of it, and so forth. So this one, it takes quite a bit of time to work these out, and in a lot of cases I'm not satisfied with, say, some of the Eurorack, so I might go back depending on the tempo. But one of the things I've learned through this process of just working on sound and so forth is that you don't have to be constrained by tempo. Obviously, if you record everything at 120 beats per minute or something like that, you can sync things up. But a lot of times, if you want to do things that are polyrhythmic in nature, or you're not even thinking about what tempo you're recording something at, not paying attention to that, just try things out, experiment. And what I sometimes do will very quickly to add something interesting is to double a track. So if I have this pattern here, I could copy that, add it as another track, and then I will just offset it a little bit forward or backwards, and you can sometimes create a delay sound or something like that just by having a double tracking effect. And there are ways, of course, to do that in your audio recordings as well, in your audio programs, creating phasing between tracks and so forth, and doing things with panning or not with panning, whatever. So yeah, this is one that I'm working on, but as you can see is not finished. And the next step after I really work through the video and the music in tandem, in combination, like in a synthetic sense, is I'll try to go back and think about what solo instrument I can put on top of this. And I'm using this particular discussion with Pattern Jazz 3 because it took me quite a while to get to a point where I felt comfortable with the sound that was on top of it. I can also look at here, this is pattern 4, and as you can see, very little is happening here. Just out of curiosity, I'll play this one as well from the 5-minute mark. And you're just hearing it raw. I haven't done anything with this. I haven't even, right now recording this, I don't even hear the audio, so I'm just going to go back later and sync the audio to this based on what is playing at the 5-minute mark. But this is another example, the same kind of theme, right? I'm using these audio files in conjunction with the video loops, and then I'm doing performance on the Eurorack. And in some cases, I might just be recording for an effect. I can't recall in this case, I think it was actually recording sound. But in some cases, I might just be recording for an effect for the video. So I'm putting the loop in, and then I'm adding, as you can see in this case, I'm doing quite a bit with light effects and so forth to really get a shine off the cables, and doing some depth stuff with my camera. I use the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera and a series of different vintage lenses I picked up on places like eBay for fairly cheap, and I often can get just different film stock looks by using the cameras, and then doing some stuff in post-production with very simple LUTs or lookup tables in terms of color grading. So it's kind of a fun process having the audio and the video at the same time. So this is another one, pattern 4, that'll be coming out later. And then for today I want to take you through just pattern 3. And I actually ended up really struggling with this one. I broke things into different parts, and one of the biggest struggles was trying to arrive at a good solo instrument. I knew I wanted to use the AE10, the Roland wind instrument, but I wanted it to be really gritty and not sounding, synthy or good or soft, which a lot of the presets on that particular instrument are, they're kind of new agey, right? They don't really lend themselves to gritty industrial stuff. So what I did was I recorded, as I showed you in those previous examples, I laid down all my tracks of the music, and I think I have that. This thing is spanning like 6 different files, I think, and one of the reasons I'm recording this making of videos, I need to clear my hard drive of all these files. So I think this is a later one where I put in a lot of final stuff. I'm just trying to go back here and find the initial things. I've got part 1 listed here. I think this was what I did here. So in the typical process, I would put the video clips here and then the music. I was struggling with just the sonic aspects of this, and I said I'm just going to focus on getting the musical clips. I'm going to put in some of the horn parts, and you can see those labeled here horn at the bottom. Doesn't matter if I mess these up now. I added some additional elements. I added some stuff from the Folk Tech. I added just additional phase drums and noise sounds to try to get this piece really where I wanted it. And at this point, I didn't have any of the video going. I just laid out black screen here just to get part one. And then I thought, okay, this sounds pretty decent as far as this part one idea. I'll go and work on a second part, combining aspects of what were in the original file and then trying to lay the horn part on top of it. And the problem was the horn was really cool with the distortion going through the Shard Eurorack module. I also put it through some other effects, reverbs, and so forth. But it was really clashing with the music. And I would say I'm 85% happy with a lot of the parts that are in the final version that is currently up on YouTube as far as Pattern Jazz Part 3. But I found some of it was like maybe dragging a little bit. There's a section I think around the 50-minute mark, maybe I'd have to go back and look, but it starts to drag a little bit, and I ended up cutting down what was a start to finish recording of the wind instrument. So what I did was I put on headphones and I had my original version of this from start to finish. It was over an hour long, and I recorded from start to finish and really paid attention to sections and tried to do some stuff that correlated, so like different rhythmic or melodic parts. But I just wasn't happy with the end result of the original backing music in the video. So I went back, started over, divvied this into two different parts. Actually, I think it was 3 parts, and then took clips of the horn parts. So I cut bits of the horn parts and did it only in Final Cut Pro here. Put those parts in, try to sync them with the various musical tracks I had going. Again, no video stuff, and I did that for this entire, which is quite long, second part. And then I think I had a third part as well. This one says portion. And what I started to do though was I started to put the video clips on top, and because everything was getting unsynced, because I had my original start to finish playthrough on the AE10 in front of my video screen on the Mac, I couldn't keep the video of my finger synced with a lot of the audio. So I tried to use some effects and transparencies and dissolves and different effects with the video to, I guess you'd say, conceal that or not draw attention to the fact that I wasn't necessarily synced all the time with my finger movements and what's happening in terms of the actual sound from the wind instrument. So it was kind of a complex process, and I did even little sections here and there where I was trying to figure out, this is actually a trailer clip I did, I guess. I just cut out a section, but I thought a pretty good section of the actual music here that we can maybe just listen to. So when I was going through the final mix, what I did was I had almost an entire complete audio track, and I don't normally do this. If you saw those other Pattern 2, what I will typically do is have a series of tracks, and then I can get more specific and go in and really think about parts playing off of one another and then how that syncs to the video. This one got so complex, and I had challenges in keeping that distorted sound of the AE10 through the Shard Eurorack module. I felt like parts were competing with one another, so I did it in a different way. So I laid out part 1 music, as you can see here, and it looks like I added just a little bit of sounds here to fill in some sections, and then I did part 2 here, and then part 3. So it was a pretty lengthy process, and then what I did was I tried to, as much as I could, create video effects or bits of videos that went along with the music based on the mood. Again, here kind of using bokehs and so forth, lens flares concealing some of the lack of sync between the video and the sound, and I wasn't too worried about that. And as I would typically, I added, some videos here and there. I did, again, transparency effects here with opacity, and I kind of used my typical process of laying things out. And as I said, I think the overall effect was good. I didn't enjoy every single part of this particular composition, but it reminds me that when I'm doing something that has a solo instrument that is trying to be incorporated with the mix, with the video clips, and then also the tracks from the Eurorack and semi-modular gear like the Folktech, I really do have to think about like that symbiotic organic relationship between the various parts in the composition. So that is kind of just an explanation for Pattern Jazz 3 and a little bit about the entire series. I will be back in the future with more of these Eurorack compositions. Again, my recent focus here in the summer of 2019 has been on some archival work, so you're getting a little bit of my back catalog that you can also check out on Bandcamp, by the way, and I always link that to my videos if you want to download any of the high quality AIFF or WAV files of my music over the years. Thanks for watching, and I'll certainly be back with more instructional videos and musical videos here in the future on my YouTube channel.